you're a family person, and if you're like me, maybe you've got a dog. So you need something that's spacious enough without being overtly large to do all the kind of practical family things. Or perhaps you're a taxi driver and you need something that's cost effective to run and spacious enough for the occasional airport run that you might have to do. Or maybe you're a travelling salesperson and therefore you've got samples and, or an engineer where you've got bits of equipment that you need to carry around with you. And like a lot of people, maybe you fancied going all electric. Well, up until about 2 years ago, your choice was limited and you really were into a small SUV or crossover. But in reality, what you really wanted was a small estate car. But the fact of the matter was, nobody bothered with all electric estate cars. Until somebody did, and it came from a very unlikely source. Believe it or not, the first person out with an all electric estate car was MG. And here we are, just 18 months later, and it's still pretty much MG that just offers an all-electric small estate car, as long as you discount things like the Porsche Taycan, Cross Turismo and Sport Turismo, of course. Now, that original car, which we road tested back in March 2021, was a good car. It was what I would class, without being rude about it, worthy if a little bit dull. It did nothing particularly badly, it just didn't do anything particularly fantastically. It was a bit all right. But that didn't stop it selling in huge numbers. Now, you could forgive MG, given the fact that it is the only car available in its class really, for being a little bit lazy and a little bit complacent. But in 2023, the MG5 is going to face some new competition from the Vauxhall Astra all-electric estate car and the new Peugeot E308 estate as well. Well, MG haven't been lazy and they haven't been complacent, because not only this year have we seen things like the revised ZS EV and the brilliant new MG4 hatchback, they've also sprinkled some of their magic dust over the top of the MG5 to give us this new revised one. So, without further ado, welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the new MG5, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of the new MG5, it is of course that time where I ask you to make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Once you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because then you'll be notified of when our next video goes live. After you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave us some comments down below, good or bad. Let us know how we're doing as a channel and let us know your thoughts on the cars that we review. Now, the MG5, as I say, if you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we road tested the original car back in March 2021, and by all means, it was a good car. It was one of those cars, I say, that was just good. It kind of did exactly as it said in the tin. It was never going to set your pulse racing, and therein lies a little bit of a problem, because as I say, the EV market moves very, very fast, and whilst up until now they've had the marketplace all to themselves for those wanting a small all-electric estate car, in 2023 that changes, because Stellantis Group are going to be bringing in all-electric estate versions of the Peugeot 308 and the Vauxhall Astra, and if they get their pricing right, then the MG5 was going to face some pretty serious competition. But as we know, MG has been a very, very successful brand since reintroduction back into the UK, and they've not been shy at giving us some pretty decent cars up until now, especially EVs. And as I say, they've turned their attention to making sure the MG5 stays very, very competitive. But have they done enough? Well, the only way that we're going to find out is by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust, to find out whether or not they're making the right decision on their next EV purchase. And that is, of course, the AutoEV one. Now, as always, we start with styling, which wasn't the previous car's biggest attribute, if I'm being honest with you. As I said, it was a bit forgettable back then. It was kind of one of those cars that looked like it was designed 15 years before its introduction day. It looked way past its best even when it was a new car. Now, don't get me wrong, there was nothing truly wrong with it, there just really wasn't anything right with it in my view. This new car, they've changed quite a bit, and the styling is one of the big focus points. Much different at the front. As you see here, we've got standard LED headlights, and they're standard across both models in the range. Now, obviously, we'll talk about trim and pricing later, but that's the standard LED lights. You get the revised Octagon badge on the front as well. It's not as big as the MG4, but it sort of tries to ape a lot of what you get on the MG4 and bring the family a little bit kind of closer together. Certainly with these kind of sharp creases that you get here, and of course all the cooling down at the bottom. Now, there's no fake grille on the new car, as you can see. All the cooling's done down there, and it's a sleek kind of pointed nose. It's a lot more distinctive than the old car. It's not as sharp looking as the MG4 in my opinion, but I do quite get what they've done. And again, if you're coming from the older car, there's not really a lot here to take your breath away and make you go, ooh, maybe not. There's actually quite a lot to like about it. And I think this is a really successful facelift at the front. Charging port remains at the front like it did in the old car, but this time it's the flap down below here rather than the actual sort of badge that moves out. And as we'll get on to talk about as well, the biggest issues that we had with the old car was its lack of safety systems. That again has changed with this new one. And of course, as you can see, you've got the small camera down here, and there's another one at the back on this car as well, because on this model, the Trophy, you get a 360-degree parking camera. But as I say, we'll go on to the specs a little bit later. It's the side profile where possibly you might be mistaken where they haven't done a huge amount. See what I mean? I'm not sure they've actually changed any of the panel work down the side. I mean, I'm sure they have. It just doesn't really look at it first glance. One thing I forgot to mention just at the front view here is these kind of side kind of gills here, which are completely filled in. There's no vent there. Not that I suppose it's really needed. It's just a bit of a styling thing, I suppose. There we go. Yeah, this is this lovely kind of Coke bottle kind of shoulder line that rose up over the rear arch like you did on the last car. The only real difference is on the side profile is you now get 17-inch wheels on the Trophy model. They're 16-inch on the base SE, and that's it. You get the roof bars as standard on Trophy, which now do carry loads. I know that was an issue with the last car. A lot of people said about they were just there for show, whereas now there are actually a purpose with them. So if you need to add on a roof box or cycle or bike carriers, you can. They'll carry up to 75 kilos on top of the roof of the car, so that's a good thing. Decent kind of door mirrors, as I say, with the sort of like side turn indicators in them, and as I say, I quite like these 17-inch kind of diamond cut alloy wheels. They're quite nice, look a bit more interesting than the rather plain silver ones of the last car. There's a nice bit of chrome kind of around sort of like the window line area, and of course across the top of the sort of like the door handles there. But yeah, again, as I say, you'd be forgiven to think they hadn't really bothered with the side profile, but I'm sure they have. Yep, and around the back, as I say, you'd be forgiven for thinking at first glance they hadn't bothered, but actually they have. And if you've got the old previous car, then you'll notice quite a few of those subtle changes. This chrome plinth doesn't run into the lights like it used to do in the last one, and these are new rear LED lights. They're really nice, they're nice design, nice distinctive look at night. Of course, you've got your MG octagon there as you had before. This area down here is quite nice, this kind of diffuse area. It's a bit smoother and it kind of just brings it a bit more cohesive in line with what's available at the front. Again, these kind of little black kind of corrugated bits there that look like vents but aren't. They still insist on this overly sized badge as far as I'm concerned, which is completely unnecessary in my book, and it sits too close to the number plate for my OCD. I'm talking number plate, I have no idea what this is, this black strip. It's obviously for helping dealers get the number plate on straight. I'm joking, it's probably for a different marketplace's number plate, but why we need it in the UK, I don't know, and it looks a bit incongruous, and I just really don't like it. Anyway, there we go. The high level, obviously, brake light as you get embedded in the spoiler. Underneath the plinth there's the reversing camera that you get there, and the boot lid release is up there, and then just parking sensors there. All in all, a successful facelift, and that's the way to look at this car. It's a reasonably big facelift, but a real massive tech uplift, as we'll go on to see later. It's still not what you'd call an absolute looker. I don't think it's as sharp looking as an original looking as the MG4, but it is much better looking than the last MG5. Now, if you're a previous owner of that car, what do you think of the facelift? Would this tempt you to upgrade? Or are you thinking of a new MG5 for yourself? What do you think of it? As always, let us know in the comments down below. Now, of course, the MG5 always had Practicality on its side, and that's no change with the new one. You've got a tailgate here that opens up to 469 litres of boot space. When you fold the standard split 60-40 split rear seat down, that extends it up to 1,367 litres. My only gripe, as it's saying the same with the last car, is when you do fold those rear seats down, they don't fold completely flat. You've got this slope up, which is a bit of a downside. It's not a completely flat floor that's in there. But still, there should be enough space as standard for most people. Now, you do get some neatly packaged underfloor storage for your cable bag, but if you don't take that with you, you can actually drop the height of the boot floor down a couple of inches, and that gives you a bit more depth into the boot. But even so, as standard, it's absolutely fine. There's a little bit of space in here for the side for your home 3-pin charger that goes in there, and the Warning triangle is just tucked up in there. So, in terms of the suitcases, well, if we put the medium one tucked right in at the back there, then our large one in there, we get one of our carry-ons in here, flip it around that way, and our other one down the side, and you can still get your tonneau cover across and boot lid shut nice and easily. So yes, a very practical car. However, despite the fact that the MG5 is an EV only, you do not get any front storage, which is a real shame actually, because if I can get this bonnet open, it does appear that there probably would be plenty of space underneath this big cover here. Now obviously you've got things like your ancillaries and some of your cooling and your heating and ventilation controls here, but I'm sure there's probably some space in there. You'd be able to get at least a small rucksack in, if nothing else. Maybe next time, MG, think about that, yeah? Rear seat space. Well, that hasn't changed at all, if I'm honest with you. And again, it's still a decent car back here, if I'm honest with you. You sit quite high, even for a short person like me, so you do sit sort of like you feel like you're kind of sitting slightly above the front seats, that you do sit in that kind of stadium style seating where you look over. Now the seat set up, the driver's seat set up for myself, and I've got plenty of knee room, and I've got a decent amount of headroom. The foot room I'm struggling with, only because I have my seat really low, and I'll talk about that when I'm in the front a little bit more. But I do feel as well your legs are pushed up ever so slightly, not a huge amount. There are cars that are a lot worse than it, but I just do feel that your legs are pushed up a tiny little bit. There is a flat floor across the back, so there's plenty of space in terms of if you had 3 kids across the back of it. There's also some storage in there, so you've got plenty of room down in there. Mat pockets in the backs of the front seats, like before. Flip down middle armrest with 2 cup holders in it. There's a decent sized door bin down here, although it is difficult to reach into because of where the actual door handle is. It feels like that should be up a little bit. Struggle to get your kind of hands in there, unless they're tiny wee hands of kids. But on the whole, it's all right. There's no sunroof available with the car, as before. There's no panoramic roof or even just a normal style sunroof available, which is a little bit of a shame in some respects. But one thing that we will see more when we're in the front, the quality of materials has had an uplift as well, and everything back here just has quite a nice feel to it. There's some really nice materials that MG are now using in the interior of the car, and they're going to be worth talking about. But on the whole, for this size of car, it would be remiss of me to say that it's not going to be enough for a small family. You're not going to want to carry 2 great big 6'8" rugby players back here, but probably most people probably don't need to do that. There's enough room for most people, and certainly to say for shorter people of my height, 5'7", 5'8", or for children, there's plenty of space. There's 2 ISOFIX points, as you'd expect. My only gripe with those is, you know, there's no cover for them. You've got to jab the prongs of the seat between the squab and the backrest. It'd be nice if they were a bit more exposed and easier to get in the seats in and out. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a minor quibble. Just that, and as I say, the weird positioning of these armrests is the only thing I can really fault with back here. There's going to be plenty of room for most people that are looking at this car. The other thing worth pointing out as well is something that some of our viewers had actually noted in the MG4 video, that there was no centre headrest in that car, which was a little bit of a safety omission, which I hadn't really thought about, if I'm being honest. Thankfully, on the MG5, you do get one, so there are head restraints for all 3 passengers across the rear. Now, like the outside, the biggest change to the MG5 is the interior, and again, it's a real welcome change. Again, as I said, the previous car, it didn't really do anything badly wrong. It just wasn't particularly great. It felt like a car that was maybe sort of like, you know, from 10, 15 years ago against kind of newer competition. So it just felt like it just needed a bit of an uplift. And that is exactly what we get in here. So as well as a much bigger tech uplift, you also get a huge amount more style as well in the car. In front of you as a driver, you've got this 7-inch instrumentation cluster. It's a full colour screen that you get, and nice and easy to read, very, very simple to understand. You get your digital speed readout across there, you get sort of like a power meter there, and in your, what do you call it, your percentages there, which is nice. Shows you when you're in regen and when you're on the power, which again is good. You've got all the simple information that you need across the bottom there, so your state of charge, your miles ready to range, the level of brake regen, the driving mode that you're in as well, and your odometer. And then above that, again, you get some of your safety systems, which I will talk about as well. Same steering wheel as before, so this nice kind of 3-spoke kind of perforated leatherette style steering wheel with enough buttons on it, which are physical buttons. They've kept those, they've kept that, which I'm really, really pleased about. It's not the sort of 2-spoke square design you get in the MG4. Again, it's the more rounded, slightly flat at the bottom that you got in the previous Model 5. So that's a nice welcome return for a round steering wheel. As you move across, this is the biggest real sort of like visual change you'll see in the car, which is this new 10.25-inch infotainment display. And it's the same that you get in the larger ZS and the new MG4, which is to say it's a good thing, but also a bad thing, because if I'm honest with you, it's one of my biggest bugbears with the MG4 and the ZS now, is this screen. It is better than what was there before, but it's still way short of class best. And the other issue that I have with what they've done here, whilst tidying all this up and making this look visually a bit more appealing, they've done away with the physical heating and ventilation controls, and they're now buried in the screen like they are in the MG4. Now, there's certain people going to say, well, that's fine because that's what everyone else does. The problem was this morning, and this car has been perfect with me all this week that I've had it, right up until this morning as I was driving down to location, when that went off and I couldn't switch it back on. I had to stop the car, wait for 5 minutes, then switch it back on to get this on. All the heat and ventilation controls are in there. I can do without the music, I can do without the radio. If that goes off, that's fine. But when you want to turn your heating and ventilation on and off, or your heated seat or whatever, and it's all controlled through the screen, if that goes off, that's it. You can't do it any other way. There needs to be, I think, physical heating and ventilation controls on cars, if I'm being honest with you, because those are the things that you're going to adjust whilst you're on the move, whilst you're driving, and those are the things you're going to want to adjust without spending too much time with your eyes off the road. There's volume controls here for the radio and your media, but they're also on the steering wheel, so why do we need them in both places? Could that not be the temperature control? And then another two being the fan speed or something? That would be a lot easier. At least you would have access to the heating and ventilation, as I say, if that fails, which it did with me this morning. Anyway, it's okay in terms of its operation. It's a lot faster than the old system was. The old system was really laggy and it was never perfectly brilliant. But even this one, you know, sometimes, you know, there's the nav. It just takes a little bit of time to come up, you know, and sometimes it doesn't work with first press. You've really got to press it a couple of times to get it up. There's your heating and ventilation button there. So that physical button there brings this up. Oh, or does it? Come on. Let's switch it on and off. See what I mean? This is the problem. It's not coming up. There you go. Now it's up. And then you adjust your fan speed like this. And then your heated seat buttons are there. They're not 3-stage heating, they're just on and off. But again, they're quite small. All the kind of icons are really small like they are in the MG4. If you're going to do it, they need to be much bigger than that. Now, I'm going to maybe make a bit of a sweeping statement here, because I think this is the type of car that would probably appeal to an older generation that's maybe moving into EVs for the first time as well, because it's, you know, it's small, it's practical, it's easy to drive, it's easy to live with. My father-in-law, who's in his 80s, would love a car like this. He just needs it to be reliable, comfortable, practical enough to get his golf clubs in, and all these little bits and pieces when that he needs when he goes on holiday and things like that. And I would happily turn around to him and say, an MG5 is a really good car. But if that went down, or he couldn't access his heating controls and stuff, he wouldn't know what to do. That needs to be better. That is one blight I think that MG really need to take control of, because that infotainment system is not good enough nowadays, I think. There's just too many good cars out there with much slicker systems than that. That needs to be better. Right, my gripe's over. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about that now. You get standard Apple CarPlay and Android Auto across both trim levels, so that's good. It's also a 6-speaker audio system, which I have to say is very good. I certainly don't have any problems with it at all in terms of its sound quality. As I say, this trophy model has the heated seats. And let's talk about those seats, because, again, they're quite nice. They're okay. I'd like to, like I said in the last car, I'd like to have been able to tilt them up at the front. I can't. And this seat is as low down as I can possibly get it. And I still feel like I'm sitting on the car, not in it. I'd like to be down a little bit lower. But of course, they've got that problem with the rear footroom. So packaging's maybe not its strong point either. It's all right. I'm probably in the minority of people that I was going to say that want the seat to go down a little bit further. But it's just something I feel I just want a little bit more adjustment of the state of the seat. The seat itself is okay. It lacks a tiny little bit of under thigh support, but I don't think many people would argue about it. On the Trophy, it's electric on the driver's side, manual on the passenger side. The steering wheel, well, yeah, that adjusts as well. So you've got reach and rake adjustment. So most people are going to be able to find a very comfortable driving position. Again, a small gripe for me, the left footrest in here just feels like it needs to be an inch or so more towards the bulkhead. I'm quite short, but even I feel that my left leg is slightly more pushed up and into me when my right leg is extended, and I kind of feel like I'm sitting at a slightly odd angle. Other than that, the driving position is absolutely fine. The controls are nice and easy to follow at hand. Auto lights, auto wipers. You also get, as part of the MG Pilot, high beam assist as well. That was a nice addition to find out about the other night. So that's on the car. Wipers on the right. Usual kind of paraphernalia on the door, so mirror adjustment, including power fold as well. They get power fold mirrors, and all your sort of like your electric window switches there. You'll notice a bit difference here. As I say, you've now got this kind of high floating centre console, which has got nice console storage here. So sunglasses, my phone's down in there because you've got the wiring for the Apple CarPlay. There's USB ports in there. They go in there. There's plenty enough storage in there. You get 2 cup holders here, a bigger one in the front, slightly smaller one in the back, so it won't take my coffee cup in the back one, but it will in the front. My water bottle that I've got with me today, it won't fit either, but I've got quite a big one. That will go down in the door bins, however, so again, there's plenty of storage there. Glove box drops down and you've got more than enough space that's in there. And I absolutely love this rotary transmission controller. It not only does it feel nice to use, but it's got such a lovely design on it. I know it's a silly little thing, but it's got these lovely little sort of like orange lights that are just round it, this little kind of lovely little design, as I say, when you move it, and you can really see it at night when you go to reach for the transmission lever. That's lovely. Electric park and brake, auto hold function. Your mode button is physical, as is your brake regeneration button, which is something we've always loved on the MGs 5 and the ZS, these little kind of toggle switches to adjust your brake regen. Really nice and easy to use. As I say, I'm just really disappointed they didn't retain the heat and ventilation controls. Bit of storage in here underneath your elbow. Other than that, the biggest thing to say about the interior of the new car is the fit and finish and the materials used, because this is a massive change from the last car. When I said the last car was good, but there was some scratchy plastics around it, it doesn't feel like that in this car. There's a slightly harder plastic used on this binnacle and upper dash level here. You know, you could maybe argue if that had been a slightly squidgier plastic, that would be great, but that is really splitting hairs. It feels really well screwed together. I love this sort of like aluminium style trim, this sort of like aluminium coloured plastic trim that goes across it and down this console. It really lifts the interior. And this material here, which is a kind of, it looks like cloth, but it's actually sort of like vinyl, and it's in the seats as well. So on the Trophy mod, you get these leatherette seats, not real leather, with this material embedded into it, and it's on the door rest as well. So kind of touch points that might get a bit grubby. It's a really nice material. The whole thing feels really good. I think this is the biggest change to the MG5. As much as it looks better on the outside, it's the interior for me that's a big uplift. And if that was just that little bit better, it would go from being very good to being absolutely brilliant. Other than that, well done MG. I think this is a great interior for you. Now, after we road tested the initial car back in March 2021, MG actually gave the option of a long range battery on the car, which upped its range obviously. And it's that battery that gets fitted as standard to the new MG5. Now it's a 61 kilowatt hour battery. It's about 57.5, 57.4 usable kilowatt hours of battery. And depending on the trim level you have will depend on the range you have. So the SE gets the biggest range, which is 250 miles, with the Trophy, which is this model, dropping down to 235. You can probably thank the bigger 17-inch alloys and those roof rails for losing those miles. Charging, I say, is done at the front here, and of course you get standard CCS charging, and it will take charging speeds of up to 87 kilowatt hours, meaning that you can go from a rapid charger from the 10 to 80% benchmark in around about 35 minutes. If you use a 50 kilowatt charger, then it's probably going to be more like around about an hour to do the same benchmark. Now, if you're charging at home from your 7 kilowatt wall box, then what you're looking at is a 10 to 100% full time of around about 10 hours. The other addition to the MG5 now is vehicle to load as well, so you can charge external devices from the car or even charge up another EV. And the other thing that I really quite like about it as well is the little charging lights are little MG octagons. I love that. It's a simple little detail that I really like. But as I say, your status lights now are just little MG octagons. So again, well done MG, putting a little bit of thought into this. Now, for all the changes that there are to the styling and the interior of the MG5, one area they haven't really changed is how the car drives. And that's not really a problem because, no, it's not an exciting car to drive, but nor does it actually need to be. What it needs to be is a relatively normal everyday family car that just kind of gets on with the job, and it does that very well. It's a single motor, 156 PS, giving you a 0 to 60 time of quite a sprightly 7.3 seconds, which is more than enough for most people, I would suggest. I don't think you really need any more than that. You've got different driving modes, depending obviously on what you're after, and that's done with this button here, this mode button, and you've got comfort, eco, and sport. And when you pop it into sport, yeah, you do feel a much sharper throttle response. You know, things start to kind of change on the dashboard. You get a few more kind of red kind of graphics and things, and as I say, the throttle response feels a little bit sharper. Generally speaking, I don't think you really need to be that. I'd just drop it back into comfort mode and just let the car get on with what it's doing, and it does it, as I say, relatively fuss-free. One of the biggest changes, however, is the level of assistance that you get on the car. Now, I'm a little bit of an old fuddy-duddy when it comes to stuff like this, and I've said that in a lot of reviews. I tend to turn a lot of these safety systems off, but I do appreciate I'm probably going to be in the minority of people, and it was a criticism we had of the previous car. It literally had none, whereas this car has everything. So again, if you're coming from the old car, you're going to appreciate all the safety systems that this car has. It's got a ton of them. It all comes under MG's MG Pilot tag, and you get things like lane keep assist, emergency brake assist, traffic jam assist, pedestrian detection and bicycle detection assist with blind spot monitoring, speed limit assist, and high beam assist. That's a lot of assist that you're going to get. But as I say, you didn't get any of that on the previous car, so to get it on this one is a real boon. And as I say, obviously it's a real tick in MG's box that the car now comes with all of those driver assistance systems on it. And they're not too intrusive, in fairness. You know, the lane keep assist, if you do kind of wander into sort of like the middle of the road, it kind of flashes a little red light on the red line on the dashboard at you, and then you just feel a little kind of vibration through the steering wheel to get you to almost kind of, you know, let's go back into your lane please, thank you very much. There you go. To turn them off, however, you've really got to delve into this screen here, and that's, again, it's kind of my bugbear, if I'm being honest with you. You've got to go into the screen to pretty much do everything on the car. And as I say, I get, you know, that there are worse things in the world, you know, and a lot we're used to, sort of like, you know, more and more things being, you know, sort of like touch screen, whether it's phones or tablets or whatever. But there's too many levels of it to go through to get to something that you want to. As I say, my biggest bugbear is the heating and ventilation controls. You've got to press a button and then it brings it up. And as I say, if you're driving, it just doesn't bring it up quick enough. There's too many layers. You can preheat the battery when you're driving, which is quite an interesting thing as well. So the battery's at optimum temperature when you go to, maybe say, charge. If you're stopping at a charging station, you can really get it up to operating temperature quite quickly, so that it's a bit more efficient when it's charging. And that's in there as well. I know, as I said, on the trophy model, this one is, you've got the 360-degree camera as well, which you can go into and you can see around the car. It's all very good. But how does the basic drive of the car feel? Well, as I say, it's exactly the same as the last car, so there'll be no surprises to you if you're trading up. There's a relatively okay steering feel to it. It's not the most precise thing in the world, but nor is it too vague. It's all right. The suspension is compliant enough, and considering, again, we've had an uplift onto 17-inch alloys from the previous car 16s, I wouldn't say there's a massive difference in the way the car rides. There's a tiny little bit of road noise over some of the rivals that I could maybe mention. It's a bit similar to the Hyundai Kona, if I'm honest with you. If you've ever driven one of those, you get a little bit more road noise from the Kona than you do from its cousin car, the Kia Niro, and it's the same here. You can just get that little bit more kind of tyre roar coming up through the wheel arches and into the cabin. But I wouldn't class it as being a noisy car. You know, you quite happily take this on, you know, a long journey and it'd be absolutely fine. I am kind of nitpicking a little bit. The brakes are good. The brakes are absolutely fine. They're not too vague. They're all right. I really like the way that, as I say, MG allows you to really toggle through the different levels of brake assist with this KERS button on the middle of the dashboard. You know, next to sort of like Hyundai and Kia's paddles on the steering wheel, that's about the best you get. Just this nice, with an easy reach, and you can flick it up and down as you need it, and it tells you exactly what level you're in there. And again, it's got a nice feel. You run about town, you can put it up into level 3, and you've got a real nice retardation on the brakes. Or if you're out on the more open road like I am now, you just go up to level 1 and you lift off, and it just coasts the car. Absolutely brilliant, really simple. I like that, nice and easy to use. No one's going to feel shortchanged by that. And then the rest of the controls, well, as I said, you know, they all fall within easy reach. Everything's nice, everything has a good quality feel about it. Your cruise control is on this separate column stock that's down here, rather than buttons on the steering wheel. They've kept that nice and simple, and I like that. So you've just got the media controls on the left, and then scrolling through different menus up here on the right hand side of the steering wheel, and the cruise controls down there. That's nice. The wheel itself, as I say, I much prefer it to the one that's on the MG4, that kind of squared off wheel. Prefer this kind of more kind of round, standard size and standard shape of wheel that you get on the 5. It just feels nice. I think it's an old Audi one, if I'm being completely honest with you. It reminds me of the old kind of Audi A3 steering wheels. Nothing wrong with that. The driving position's fine. As I say, it'd be nice. I still feel like I'm sitting on the car, not in it. But again, that could just be my type of driving that I prefer. The seat's okay. It lacks a tiny bit of lateral support, but it's all right. It doesn't pinch you, it doesn't feel uncomfortable, it's not too hard. There's enough cushioning in it, although again, I'd maybe like a tiny little bit more of under thigh support, but again, I'm sort of nitpicking, if I'm honest with you on that. What it comes down to is this. It is just a very straightforward, I'm not going to say basic because it's not basic, but it's just a very straightforward, get on with the job car that will fit into everyday family life for you. Or, as I said, if you're one of those people that you know that you're a travelling salesman or a salesperson, or you're an engineer, and you spend your days up and down motorways visiting customers or clients, and you need a big boot for samples or tools, then again, this is perfect. So see, it's well equipped. Even the standard SE model gets Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, you know, and most of the MG Pilot systems that you find on the car, and it's the same battery. So you know, in terms of going up for the higher trophy spec, there's an element of you, like we said with the MG4, you'd maybe have to question whether or not you would need to. That's down to you. But on the whole, it's just a no-nonsense, no-frills type of car that just gets on with the job. It's a very, very easy car to live with. And that's what we've come to expect from MG. Gone are the days when MG was like an exciting kind of sports brand. Now they're just giving us good value for money, everyday cars that are nice to drive, well equipped, well warranted, and just get on with the job of doing what we need them to do. And this MG5 is no different. It's all right. It's a good car. I can't really, if you take it in context, I can't really fault it. Now, I thought I was finished on this section here, but I've stopped at some traffic lights for some roadworks. This is what I was meaning here. I'm trying to adjust the temperature now. The screen's frozen. It's not letting me do it. It'll go to navigation. It asks me if I want my music on. Asks me if I want my phone. It does give me a 360-degree part, but as soon as I hit the temperature button, the heating and ventilations are not coming up. That's not good enough, MG. That needs to work. Come on. That's, you know, we're talking about a car that's over £30,000 here, and I can't turn my heating on and off, or my heated seat. Come on. Why is this not working? Work! God damn you! Work, man! Work! None of this would be needed if we had a normal buttons, you know. They wouldn't need to do this if they had buttons like they used to have in the old car. That's a backward step, MG. Now, when we road tested the previous model MG5, that was a bit of a bargain, I have to say. And this one sort of still is. Now, there is a price increase and there is a bit of a jump from the last car. You get two models in the range, either the SE, which starts the range off at £30,995, or the Trophy, which this car is, which is £33,495. And that's before any options fitted. This particular car's got metallic paint, which takes it up more towards the £34,000. Now, as I say, you might think to yourself, oh, that's a lot more than the previous car. It is, but bear in mind you're getting that bigger battery. And the plug-in car grant is no longer available, and that was in play when we road tested the previous car. So that was a deciding factor as well. And there's also a lot more equipment, certainly safety equipment, on the new MG5. So you've got to take all those things into consideration when you start thinking about the price of it, especially if you bought the previous car and you're thinking about moving into this one. So as I say, do bear that in mind, that you are getting a lot more MG5 for your money as well now. And you've obviously got the UK government to thank for the price being increased as well. But it's not just the price, as we always say. Bear in mind you've got to think about whole life costs, and of course MG is one of the manufacturers that give you that 7-year warranty as well. So that's got to be taken into account as well. And of course the dealers are getting very good reputation, so in terms of the servicing and how you're looked after, has to be thought of too. And competition, well, as I say, it's pretty much the only all-electric estate car that's currently available on the market, if you discount spending £70,000 on a Porsche Taycan. But that'll change in 2023 because, as I say, Peugeot and Vauxhall are entering the fray with the E308 and Vauxhall Astra Electric in estate form as well. And as I said, if they start aggressively pricing those cars, then MG is going to have a little bit of a fight on its hands. But of course you might just look at other cars. You might be an estate car, might not be for you, but you do need the practicality. Well, of course you could look at things like the MG ZS. Competition from within MG itself is the ZS, a very sort of similar size of footprint, very, very similar car in terms of its range and the way it drives in that small crossover body style. You're also, if you're looking at the top of the range trophy model, tantalisingly close to where the Kia Niro EV starts. And you know how much we love that car. And of course, you've got to think about maybe the Hyundai Kona sister car to that as well. It's a little bit smaller, probably not quite as practical, but we know how good Hyundai is to drive, and I say it is one of our favourites. You may also look at standard 5-door hatchbacks too, in which case then you've got things like the Citroen EC4, the about to be facelifted Volkswagen ID3, and of course, again from within MG itself, the MG4. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the new MG5. We like the improved styling. It's standard equipment, the interior fit, finish and design, the standard safety systems now available on the car, and of course that 7-year warranty package. We don't like, although it's improved on its styling, it's still no design classic. Those rear seats don't fold completely flat, which we think would be a boon in a small estate car. The driving experience is still a little uninvolving. The price has crept up in comparison with the old car, and the infotainment system still isn't as good as some of the other cars in its class, and too many features are buried there within that. The continued success of the MG brand is well deserved, because they continue to provide us with cars that are well equipped, good value for money, well warranted, comfortable, relatively decent to drive, with a real focus on electrification that just seem to fit into everyday family life. And the new MG5 is no different whatsoever. If you've got the previous car and you're thinking about moving up into this one, trust me when I say, all the little changes that MG have made, you will notice and you will appreciate. This is one of those cars that just gets on and does the job that it's got to do. No, it's not the most exciting car to drive, but nor does it need to be, because what it needs to be is just a good all-round everyday family car. And trust me, it is that and a little bit more. Thank you for watching another episode of AutoEV. As always, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. And once you've done that, press the little bell button that's down below, because that way you'll be notified when our next video goes live. If you've enjoyed the review, make sure you do give us a thumbs up and leave us some comments down below, good or bad. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know your thoughts on the MG5. Do you own one of the previous cars? Are you thinking about a new one? Or have you got one of these on order? By all means, do let us know and let us know your thoughts. Remember as well, if you're into your social media, we're across all those platforms as well. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. Please do give us a follow there, because every little bit helps. And if you're desperate to see even more road test reviews from a silly old Scotsman talking about electric cars, then please stick on our YouTube channel, because there is now well over 100 videos on our library, including not just road test reviews, but electric icons, twin test, used car reviews, van reviews, and even motorbike reviews from our guest presenter, Charlie Burman. All that remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching and continuing to support AutoEV. We'll see you again soon. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded.